Hey, there you are. If you like the content I bring, your help is essential. For the channel to remain active and grow more and more, I need your support. Each new follower is a huge incentive to continue creating exciting stories and videos full of fun and adventures. Also, by subscribing, you help me convert this passion into sustainable work, which allows me to offer you even more surprising content. As soon as you don't forget to subscribe, please like and share. Your participation makes all the difference. The Vasconcelos' country house was always a place for fake smiles and deafening silences. Lara grew up there, surrounded by luxury, but devoid of genuine love. The youngest daughter of an agribusiness magnate, she learned early on that affection did not buy power, and vice versa. She was always the most devoted, the one who never argued, the one who bent over backwards to be worthy of her parents. Her older brother Victor was the opposite, impulsive, rebellious, and favored. Even so, Lara never dared to rebel, but everything was about to fall apart. The day her father suffered a heart attack, Lara rushed to the hospital with a heavy heart, unaware that fate was preparing a truth capable of destroying everything she believed to be real. The will was read days later, with the smell of mourning still lingering on the walls. Lara sat among her uncles and cousins, awaiting the lawyer's words with the serenity of someone who had dedicated her life to that empire. But as the assets were listed, she noticed that her name was not mentioned. The silence turned into a deafening buzz when the lawyer announced that Lara would receive nothing. Absolutely nothing. Everything, land, stocks, properties, had been left to Victor. The ground disappeared beneath her feet. She looked to her mother for explanations, but found only a look of disdain. "You were never a real daughter," she said coldly. "It was a mistake we tried to hide. Until now." That night, Lara felt as if she had died along with her father. Her identity, her name, her place in the world, everything was in ruins. She was thrown out of her home like a stranger. Penniless, aimless, and with a gaping wound in her chest, she wandered the streets of the city. The newspapers extolled Victor as the legitimate heir, while she struggled to understand who she was. In a cheap boarding house, she cried through the night. But something inside her was awakening, a thirst for justice. That could not be the end. She decided to investigate. She began by looking at the records of the maternity hospital where she was born. What she discovered in the old papers not only confirmed that she was not her biological daughter, but that her origins involved something even darker. She had been bought. The truth came in fragments. A receipt hidden in a disused hospital, an unsent letter from the nurse who had cared for her, and a crucial clue, the name Marta. This woman, Lara learned, had been a nanny at the Vasconcelos' mansion. With effort, she located Marta in a remote neighborhood. The elderly woman was weak, but lucid enough to confess, "Your biological father tried to get you, but he was silenced." Horror set in. Lara, the daughter of a man who died trying to get her back, was the victim of a family that made lies its foundation. The blood that ran through her veins belonged to another man, and that man had been destroyed by the Vasconcelos. Her thirst for justice grew. Lara didn't just want the truth. She wanted each and every one of those who condemned her to abandonment to pay. She started working as an assistant in a law firm. She used a false name, different hair, and a new identity. She studied at night, read lawsuits, and learned how to destroy someone without laying a finger on them. Meanwhile, she kept in touch with former employees of the farm, looking for cracks in the family business. And she found them. Money laundering, land grabbing, false documents. Lara now had ammunition. But she wanted something more than revenge. She wanted exposure. She dreamed of seeing the Vasconcelos name associated with ruin. Years passed. Lara became a cool, elegant, articulate woman. She created a complete dossier with evidence and witnesses. She decided to take action during the family's annual philanthropy event, now in Victor's hands. She used a contact to get hired as the event's outsourced coordinator, entering without arousing suspicion. On the night of the event, while the spotlight shone on Victor, Lara activated the documents. On the big screen, live photos, evidence, names appeared. The scandal was instantaneous. Screams, dishes breaking, Victor trying to turn everything off. Lara, from the corner of the room, watched, silently, ruthless. For the first time, they knew what it was like to be exposed. They knew what it was like to lose. The next day, the newspapers reported the fall of the Vasconcelos family. Federal investigations were opened. Victor was subpoenaed. Lara's mother, humiliated in public, disappeared from social media. But Lara felt no peace. The victory seemed empty. Deep down, she hoped that someone would regret it, that her mother would look for her, that she would say she was sorry. But the silence was absolute. No one defended her. No one regretted it. It was in this emptiness that she realized her fight had been for something she would never receive. Love from someone who never knew how to love. So, she decided to follow another path, to discover her real family, to find her biological father. The search took months. His name was Silverio, a simple man who had spent years trying to prove that he had been deceived. She found him in a small town in the countryside. He recognized her immediately, with tears in his eyes. "You look just like your mother," he said, hugging her carefully, as if she were made of porcelain. For the first time in years, Lara truly cried. She stayed there for weeks. She met uncles and cousins and told simple stories full of affection. They were poor, but there was more love in that small home than in the entire mansion where she grew up. Silverio told her everything, how he fell in love with her mother, how she died in childbirth, and how the Vasconcelos, in alliance with a corrupt judge, stole her daughter. Even amidst sincere smiles, the pain remained. Lara now had roots, but also deep wounds. She knew she would have to decide, continue her crusade against the Vasconcelos, or bury that past. She decided to return to the city to complete her mission, not for revenge, but for justice. She handed over the entire file to the public prosecutor's office. The evidence was accepted. The case exploded. Victor tried to escape and was arrested. Her mother fled the country. The mansion was confiscated. Lara watched everything from afar. Alone, but at peace. She knew that justice had been served. Now, finally, she could breathe and write her own story. Years later, Lara transformed her pain into a voice. She became a lawyer, specializing in the rights of children in illegal adoptions. She founded an NGO in the name of her biological mother, helping women in vulnerable situations. She became a reference and was invited to give lectures and interviews. But she never told her whole story. She kept it like a precious secret, like a scar she didn't want to expose, but also didn't want to forget. It was her strength, her origin, the blood she chose to honor. Silverio, already elderly, accompanied her whenever he could, proud. The name Vasconcelos disappeared from the headlines. But Lara became unforgettable. One day she received an anonymous letter. Inside there was only one sentence: "The blood screams louder." Along with it, an old photo of her as a baby in the arms of an unknown woman. That rekindled her doubts. Could there be more secrets? She began to investigate again. She returned to the city where Silverio lived and questioned old acquaintances. until she discovered the woman in the photo was her real mother, and Silverio was not her father. He had only created the narrative to protect her from the real horror. Her mother had been the victim of a child trafficking scheme, and Lara was the only survivor of a network that involved judges, politicians, and the Vasconcelos. The truth crushed her. Everything was worse than she had imagined. She was a symbol of resistance, but also the last living witness to a criminal organization. She decided to reopen the case, now with a new mission: to expose the entire system. What began as revenge became a purpose. Lara knew she could die trying, but she couldn't. She traveled, collected statements, and protected witnesses. With the help of the NGO, a national movement began. Complaints were filed. Lara's story reached Congress. And even though fear haunted her, she stood firm. Because now, she wasn't just fighting for herself. She was fighting for everyone. The truth crushed her. Everything was worse than she had imagined. She was a symbol of resistance, but also the last living witness to a criminal organization. She decided to reopen the case, now with a new mission: to expose the entire system. What began as revenge became a purpose. Lara knew she could die trying, but she couldn't. She traveled, collected statements, and protected witnesses. With the help of the NGO, a national movement began. Complaints were filed. Lara's story reached Congress. And, even though fear haunted her, she stood firm. Because now she wasn't just fighting for herself, she was fighting for everyone. The threats began. Anonymous phone calls, cars following her, raids on her NGO. But Lara was no longer the abandoned girl. She was a woman who knew both sides of the system, the dirty and the fair. And she knew how to use them. She made alliances with investigative journalists, honest judges, federal agents. She built a silent force. When the first warrant was issued, dozens of names were dropped. A second wave of arrests exposed more faces: politicians, businessmen, judges, and at the center of the network, once again, was the name Vasconcelos. The family that rejected her was involved up to their necks. Victor, from prison, tried to negotiate plea bargains, but it was too late. Lara was now untouchable. The discredited, rejected, marginalized woman was now a symbol of courage. Books began to be written about her story. Documentaries were produced. Society cried out for justice, but also for redemption. And Lara, despite all the pain, chose to forgive. Not the acts, but herself. For the time she wasted trying to be loved by someone who didn't deserve it. For the hatred that consumed her for so long. For the girl who believed she had no value. Now she knew. She always had. She just needed to remember. In the silence of her new home, Lara looked into the mirror and finally recognized her own reflection. There were no more doubts, no more suffocating sorrows. There were scars, yes, but there was also light. Her choices had left their mark on the world. Her name now stood for justice, truth, and resistance. And when asked how she survived, she would smile and say, "Because I learned that it doesn't matter where you come from. What defines you is what you choose to do with the pain." And Lara chose to transform the blood, the abandonment, and the lies into freedom.